Welcome to our spoilers review of Maggie Stiefvater's All the Crooked Saints.
I really liked this book.
I really did too.
It was really short. It was a lot shorter than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
When I was reading it, I'm like, wow, it's almost over. What?
No, I've waited so long for this book.
And I think it's a standalone too, so it's like, this is it.
This book takes place in like the 1960s kind of deal. It takes place in this little town which consists of like this family complex called Bicharraro, where the Soria family has emigrated from Mexico. The Soria family has been known for being saints and performing miracles. Now, it's not like a miracle like you'd think of, like, I'm healed! It's more...
You're a little bit more involved.
Yeah. It's more like you have a problem and a miracle is performed, and then there's going to be a manifestation, you're going to be changed somehow, and then you have to figure out what that manifestation is trying to tell you, and by solving the miracle, you solve your problem and you learn to deal with it.
They describe it as the manifestation is the manifestation of your darkness. That thing inside of you that's like...
eating at you.
Yeah, it's like, now you see it, and is that better?
Like, there's a lecherous priest who's got like a coyote head. There is a set of twins who can't stop bickering but are also very codependent, and so they're like bound together by a two-headed snake that like kind of like attacks and irritates them all the time, and they have to like work together to like get rid of the snake.
There's a guy covered in moss. He's basically becoming moss, and I have no idea what his deal is. He's just sitting and not interacting with people all the time, and he's reading books, so it's like maybe he's like a stone that is not moving, and therefore moss does not grow, you know, on a rolling stone. Hey,
yeah.
That was like
that's the closest you got.
That was the closest I got.
I guess the biggest disappointment of this book is you don't find out what caused each manifestation. A couple of them get solved, but not all of them.
Like, she goes into the family's history about how they emigrated to the States, and
they had like one ancestor who went crazy and started cutting off heads.
Oh, he was my favorite.
Yes.
So he's like inspired to build this kind of like chapel for where the saint will sit to grant miracles, and the way they describe it, it's great. It's like, he did this, and the family thought, that's good. He did this, and that's pretty good too. And then he went off and he murdered this guy and made a cross out of his bones and put it on top of the chapel, and the family was like,
no thanks. Moments like that especially really like tie it to like the magical realism like genre for me, and it could be an adult book if you wanted it to, but it's in the YA section. It just happens to be. Like, I seem to recall of reading a magical realism book that was like had like that very similar sense of like gory humor in a way, where just weird shit happens and you just deal with it. And you're kind of introduced to this family through Pete and Tony as they're like coming through the desert, and I really kind of like that scene because Tony picks up Pete as a hitchhiker and like tells Pete to drive, and like Pete's driving and he's like, the desert is so beautiful, and the desert was like, oh,
you think I'm beautiful? Have a storm, motherfucker!
He was still like, the desert is beautiful. The desert was like, a rock is gonna hit your car. He was still like, the desert is beautiful. And then the desert fell in love with Pete too. Like, it's just so cute.
I love Pete because Pete is so steadfast. And I find it very rare to come across a character like that who's just so genuinely good, almost annoyingly so, but it's not played to be annoying or for laughs. He's just like, I wanted to join the military because I come from a military family, but I have a hole in my heart, so that's not gonna happen. But I just want to find like my place and work hard because working hard makes me happy. And everyone's just like,
okay, buddy.
The doctor told him that like his heart shouldn't bother him, but don't get worked up like emotionally, because that might be your problem. So he sees Beatrice and like he feels his heart go, and he's like, nope, 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 nope. They play a game of like avoiding each other. It's really so cute. When she finally catches him, he faints. And it's like the only time that I've come across like love making someone faint where it like works.
The story like follows the three Soria children, Beatrice, Joaquin, and Daniel has made the huge mistake falling in love with one of the pilgrims. And that is a mistake because pilgrims come, they get their miracle manifests itself in a metaphorical way, and then if the saints accidentally or on purpose help them solve that miracle, their darkness also manifests.
And a saint's darkness is worse than a pilgrim or like a person's darkness. Like, it's very violent, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to win.
So that means they can't help Daniel. So Daniel's like, I don't want to affect my family and they're going to want to help me. So I'm just going to remove myself to the desert. God knows what's going to happen to me out there. And so the book kind of starts as a reaction to Daniel leaving. They're all just like, oh shit, like what the fuck? Like Daniel's parents have died from accidentally helping a pilgrim. Like this is not good. We're probably going to lose him. And they're still kind of dealing with that grief from the past. Everybody kind of deals with their grief in their own way. I really like Beatrice's character because she's like logical to a fault. Like, she doesn't get scared really. She works everything out in her head, and she's kind of always been told her entire life that she's emotionless and she just doesn't have them. So when she finally does have emotions about Daniel leaving and about Pete, she just doesn't know how to deal with them. She's like, I don't have emotions, what are you talking about? This isn't a problem, until it like smacks her in the face. And Daniel and the Pilgrim's manifestations are so much fun. You know, the big giant guy, wolf's head guy.
My two favorite parts of this book. Scene number 1, Daniel is out in the desert and he's basically dying, and he gets rescued by the 3 crazy men who run around in the desert. Because over the course of the book, we're told about people leaving in the desert. A German guy, the crazy relative, and there's one more who I'm blanking on. It was the lawyer. I think it was the lawyer.
Yeah, there's a lawyer.
The lawyer whose like beard grew down. I guess they all meet up in the desert and are like wild men in the desert together, and they've come across Daniel and they like force feed him water and leave him food. And it's just like, don't die out here, kid. And then they just ride off into the sunset, never to be seen again. And I'm like, that is payoff that I did not know I wanted. My other favorite scene, so when Daniel goes out into the desert, he steals a radio so that he can listen to his cousin's radio show. That radio was in the barn, keeping a stallion who
my
liked
favorite
to
part
jump,
too.
like amused. He escapes.
He doesn't have his radio to keep him calm.
And so he goes away, and like, so Pete and Beatrice have to chase down this stallion, and they end up on this other farm, and there's a cockfighting ring, and just like that entire sequence, and they steal the rooster.
The prize rooster named General MacArthur.
And the owner of the rooster, she lived with this woman and they were in love, and this woman had the gall to die first. This woman's heart turned to salt like her land, and I'm like, oh.
That whole sequence was just phenomenal.
And so they kidnap this rooster. Beatrice is riding the horse back, and Pete is driving the car back with this rooster who's like passed out in the sea. And they give the rooster to Beatrice's father, and he like tames the rooster.
Like puts it in front of its own reflection until it like fights itself out. And then it comes like full circle because like at the end the woman whose heart is full of salt figures out where they live finally.
I'm here for my rooster.
And they're like, would you like a miracle? And you're like, this is a trap, haha. This book kind of is a little episodic. It's kind of hard to tell you exactly what happens. But the family eventually like finds a way to talk to him. They use their pirate radio station to broadcast to him. Daniel had fallen in love with one of the pilgrims, which was why his darkness came out. They kind of talk it out. She solves her darkness. They realize that his darkness actually needs to be helped, and it's signaling to the family.
The entire family's darkness, like all of their darkness. The manifestation of their big problem.
Yeah. Beatrice has to help Daniel solve it, and that's the solution, and she doesn't catch it because that's cure, basically. She helps him solve it, and it's like, oh, I guess probably what happened somewhere down the line is a saint got lazy and just didn't want to deal with it, so they're like, I'm not gonna help the pilgrims solve their miracles, and so on and so forth, and it just got passed down that you're not supposed to help the pilgrims. It's a cute, happy ending.
Yeah, I liked a lot of things about it. I liked subverting the system to help the pilgrims solve their miracles through the radio. Like, Joaquin was like, I want to make a difference, and I love him. He's a sweetheart. It's never questioned that he has talent as a radio host, and when Tony, who is a radio host in his real life, realizes that this is what this kid wants to do, he's like, I have like this crate of records in the back of my car. They're all copies of stuff that's coming out in like the next few weeks. You gotta give these to this kid so he can play them. And poor Pete is stuck being the like run between everyone. And it's just too good to say no.
But yeah, it's like a happy ending all around. Pete and Beatrice get together. Her mother and father kind of solve their problem and get over their grief, and the family is a lot healthier and happier because they went through this problem. That's like super adorable. I love like the owls floating in like apparently like owls are attracted to miracles, so there's just like a whole shit ton of owls around the farm the entire time. It's great. I love it.
It was a good book. I definitely recommend it.
So pick up all the Crooked Saints, tell us some of your favorite magical realism books, and we will see you guys later. Bye guys.